Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Yeah, I Said It. As always, the show is hosted by yours truly, Lance Williams, and hopefully a flub in the first 15 seconds will not be indicative of the quality of the show today. Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to my co-host of The Standard. As a Standard, I believe we're going to be doing it today as well, so you're going to get, I believe, another show from me and Jeff, as well as the post-game show tomorrow after the Steelers play the Tennessee Titans. But I want to give a big shout out to him. I want to give a big shout out to Who's Bad? Brian Anthony Davis, aka Mr. Touchdown Zone. Also want to give a big shout out to the Oracle of all Steeler knowledge. Want to give a big shout out to Dave Schofield. On this particular episode, before I jump into the title episode, also, you can catch the program in podcast form as well. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and any medium. Just do a search for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Do a search for myself, Lance Williams, Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield, Brian Anthony Davis, Tony DeFeo. Do a search for any of us and you will find the show. Make sure you subscribe. The same way you can find the show on YouTube. Make sure you join us on YouTube and subscribe. If you're in the live chat, there is the super chat feature where you can contribute to the show and get your question answered first. So before we jump into the show, I want to give a big shout out to Rod Young, who jumped in, and to Ali Ward. Big up to you guys for jumping in and doing what we ask you guys to do so often, is to subscribe to the show. So when the shows start, you can get that little notification on your phone and you can interact with us on the live chat. But the title of this episode this week, and this is going to be a little more analytical this week from me. A lot of times you guys love the rants, like when I went off on ESPN, why ESPN are haters. But this is going to be a little more analytical. I'm going to give you a little more something to bite on, a little more to chew on. And the title of the show is simply, The Young Guys Have to Become the Guys. Now, for some of you who are dim-witted, possibly, who are listening to the program, some of you who want me to say it in a different way, the young guys have to become the guys is another way of saying the young guys are going to have to step up. Now, the first thing I want to do is to define what young guy means. Let me read this. A young guy is a guy on his first contract who played 50% or more of the offense or defensive snaps last year, and a player who we all anticipate to play that percentage of snaps in 2019. So we're trying to identify the players that we think may need to make that jump for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win a seventh Lombardi. Because typically in a football team, we all like to wax poetic about the draft picks. We always like to focus on the current stars of the team. But a lot of times, a team has to move forward by the young guys becoming the guys. An example from the last Super Bowl champion would be Timmons and Woodley. The jump that they made in their second season, which was pivotal to the Pittsburgh Steelers winning their sixth championship. So I'm going to give you an example of a current player who is a young guy that has become one of the guys. And that guy is Javon Hargrave. In 2017, he had 32 tackles and 2 sacks. In 2018, he had 49 tackles and 6.5 sacks. That is the example of a young guy becoming one of the guys. So I'm going to start on the offensive side of the ball because everybody loves offense. Although chicks dig the long ball, everybody else likes offense. But I do have to pause and give a big shout out to Steeler 36 Nation from the North Side. Holla at me, North Side in the house, 15233 15212. Big up to anybody out there from Manchester listening to the program. Chester County in the building, baby. You know what it is. So on the offensive side of the ball, I've identified 3 individuals that I think if they become one of the guys or young guys who are going to become one of the guys, that if they make the ascension, that leap, that the Steelers will be a team that has a legitimate chance to compete for a seventh Lombardi. And the first name is probably the most obvious, and that's James Washington. Let me give you James Washington's stats from 2018. Then I'm going to pose a question for you guys to see if you think that James Washington can make the type of jump that I think he can make. In 2018, 16 receptions, 217 yards, yards per catch, 13.6, and 1 touchdown. Now, the question I want to ask you guys is, can James Washington make the leap and become what Mike Wallace was in Mike Wallace's rookie season? In Mike Wallace's rookie season, he had 39 receptions for 756 yards. He averaged 19. Let me say that again. 19.4 yards per catch with 6 touchdowns. Riddle me this. If James Washington can make the jump to be the first year and have the first year rookie numbers of Mike Wallace, can you imagine a guy paired with Mike Wallace, or with Juju Smith-Schuster, that could get those numbers? Can you imagine a guy averaging close to 20 yards per catch with Juju and how that would impact the offense? So going from 16 to 39 receptions, I think that's doable. The way he's played in the preseason, the amount of work that we've seen him put in his game, I think his targets will increase with no AB. And we talked about that on previous shows. Where are the 170 targets going to go for Antonio Brown? Some of those are going to go to James Washington. So he's going to get more targets. I think he can make the leap from 16 to 39. I think he could probably get to 756 or almost the 800 mark and get more yards. The two big questions and key stats are, will he average 19.4 yards per catch, and will he get the 6 touchdowns? I think he can make the jump and get the touchdowns, but 19.4 yards per catch, I mean, that's just bonkers. I don't think he'll get there. But if he could get, let's say, to 16 yards per catch, that's outstanding. So getting bent with Bo says he's going to flirt with the 900 to 1,000 yards. If he gets 900 to 1,000 yards and Juju gets his numbers, that offense is absolutely ridiculous. But I agree with get bent with Bo. The 19 yards per catch is just outrageous. But just imagine if it's 16. If it's 16, he's a legitimate deep threat. That means he's going to expand the field, create a lot more width in the offense with his verticality, and allow them to attack all areas of the field. And again, I agree with get bent with Bo. I'll take even 15. That is a great compliment to Juju and what Juju does. So again, I'm going to pose the question to you guys. And I want to see how many of you guys agree with me or not, yes or no. I'm going to put it out there and say he will match and have a better season than Mike Wallace's rookie season. The only number that won't match will be the 19.4 yards per catch. Do you guys disagree or do you agree? Put your thoughts on the live chat and we'll jump back with them. And Darren Dalton wrote, he agrees with getting bent with Bo. I definitely think so too. I have a feeling that James Washington's going to have a big year, specifically in yards and yards after the catch. So again, just imagine if that young guy becomes one of the guys on this offense, just how much better will this offense be? The number 2 guy I want to talk about is James Conner. And the question I'm going to pose to you guys is this: can James Conner be better than the 2017 Kareem Hunt? Can James Conner be the best running back in the AFC North? That, to me, if he established himself as that would be an example to me of a young guy becoming one of the guys. Let me give you Kareem Hunt stats from 2017. 272 carries, 1,327 yards, which led the AFC that year, and that was his rookie campaign. 4.9 yards per carry and 8 touchdowns. Last year, James Conner, 215 carries, 973 yards, 4.5 yards per catch for reception, or not reception, for per rush, and 12 touchdowns. The receiving numbers are very similar. Kareem Hunt, 53 catches, 455 yards, 8.63 TDs. Conner, 55 receptions, 497 yards receiving, 9 yards per catch, 1 touchdown. If he could match the 1,327 yards, the 4.9 yards per carry, it would be awesome. I think the biggest question for him is, can he again increase 4.5 to get it close to 5? But the big thing with James Conner is, can James Conner play 14 to 16 games? Because Kareem Hunt did all that work in 16 games. Can he play a full slate of games? Can he play 14 to 16 games? I mean, that's the biggest question. And if you're on the live chat, give me your thoughts. Can he play 16 games? Can he match those numbers? Do you guys think that James Conner will be the best running back in the AFC? Because if he's better than the tandem of backs in Cleveland, and he's better, and he's the best back in the division, I'll go back to the question. That's an example of one of the young guys becoming one of the guys. And if he steps up and takes himself to another level, even more than the Pro Bowl that he did last year, can you imagine? James Washington becomes the guy that you think he's going to be, with James Conner playing 14 to 16 games and having an even better season than last year. Guess what? If they do that, guess who the Steelers aren't missing? Mr. Third and Fifth and Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed. You don't have to worry about the contributions of those guys. A guy that's getting butt naked robbed by Scrippus, or a guy that's got Mr. Flabby Feet, Mr. Flaky Feet, Mr. Third and Fifth, because you've got two young guys stepping up and becoming one of the guys. So Cree chimed in and said that he thinks he could get it and he'll play the 14 and 16 games if his workload is split. So let me ask you guys, would you be okay if the workload is split, he plays the 14 and 16, but if you combine the production between him and Samuel, you get even more numbers than Kareem Hunt? Darren jumped in, or let me jump to Daniel. Daniel jumped in. I think backfield is not going to be only Connor's job. I think Samuel's contribution is going to impact those running back numbers as well. Big up the Snowman. He says, I love those nicknames. You know, for one of the listeners from the North Side, he understands. Being from the North Side, we're creative with names. You know, Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed, Mr. Third and Fifth, that's all Manchester. That's all Manchester silly stuff, and that's how we get down. That's how we do names. Kevin Shin chimed in and said, the biggest difference that Kareem Hunt was the man. Conner will share carries with Samuels. Conner will have to stay healthy all season then. I'm not so certain about that. You guys dig into the archives. I did a show that said, I think Tomlin will run the wheels off of James Conner. That's just his nature. When you've got a feature back that can tote that thing, you want him to tote that thing. And if he can stay healthy, tote that thing, he going to tote that thing. So for him not to tote that thing, it's going to be up to Samuels to tote that thing. And that's the third young guy who has to step up to become one of the guys for this team to win a Lombardi is Jalen Samuels. I'm going to give you his numbers from last year. 56 carries, 256 yards, 4.6 yards per attempt, no touchdowns rushing, 26 receptions, 199 yards, 7.7 yards per catch, and 3 TDs. Now I want to pose this question to everybody in the live chat. Let's spend a little bit of time on this. I want you guys to think. I want to engage you guys. I was telling you This is going to be a little tougher show. You guys will have to listen a little bit closer to this show. What numbers do you see Jalen Samuels getting in 2019? 56 carries. How much does that go up? In my mind, when I look at the Connor carries 215, Samuels 56, I was thinking maybe about 100 carries rushing. Maybe that doubles. You know, what type of number does that mean to you guys? What does that mean? And so getting bent with Bo says 75-25 Connor to Samuels. So if you combine the carries, I don't have a calculator. Somebody do the math for me. Let's add those carries, 215 and 56. 6 is 11 carry to 1. That's like 261 carries. So let's say, do we think that the running game is going to get 300 carries? I mean, how do we think this is going to carry it out? So Cree says 50 to 60 carries. I think he's going to get more than that. He got 56 last year. Or how many carries do you guys think he'll get per game? Will he get 15? Will he get 10 to 15 carries? Because now in the modern running game, if a back gets 21 carries, that's a ton of carries. You know, if they're pretty much a balanced offense and there's 30 carries in a running game, is he getting 10 per game? Maybe that's about 150 for the year. Connor's getting about 20. I like that distribution. In terms of yards, 256. I think that bumps up. Reginald Rivers said 60 carries, 675 yards. Well, if he does that, he's the man, because that's over 10 yards a carry. Thomas White chimed in, 271 carries, 75% would be Connor, 201, and Samuel 70. I kind of like that distribution. Maybe they can run the ball a little bit more. Connor goes to about 225, keeps it about the same, 225, 240, and Samuels goes up to about 100. Maybe you get 350 carries out of the running game. And Kevin said the most important thing, it depends on if Big Ben is going to be Big Ben and call his number and gunsling that thing. But the biggest question is touchdowns. He scored 3 touchdowns last year. How many touchdowns do you think he'll get this year? I think that will increase. I think the 3 touchdowns, I think that doubles. I think that goes to 6. And if it could double and it can go to 6, Washington's numbers can double. That's how you start paring down those 15 touchdowns that Mr. Third and Fifth gave you last year. Now I'm going to jump on the other side of the ball. And Raphael, big up to Raphael Hung. He said, as long as no one gets butt naked and robbed. Well, yeah, they got to avoid getting butt naked and robbed. Absolutely. If they get butt naked and robbed, they might lose a job. But let's switch to the defensive side. And let me jump back to my definition again, because I said the definition at the top of the show. Let me get my notes because I want to read it. The definition of a young guy, again, is a guy on his first contract who plays 50% or more offensive or defensive snaps from last year, and someone who will participate in that percentage of snaps in 2019. Now, we're going to disqualify Bud Dupree because Bud Dupree is in his 5th season. Once you get to year 5, you're disqualified. You're no longer a young guy. You've played enough snaps to where your playing personality is well established. Young guys are guys whose playing personality is still being formed as they develop. Now, the first name of a young guy who has to become one of the guys is Sean Davis. And the simple question I ask about Sean Davis is simply, can he put up the same numbers as a 2017 Sean Davis? 2017, 90 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 8 pass defense, 3 interceptions. 2018, 80 tackles, 7 pass defense, 1 pick, no tackles for loss. Can he even be as good as he was in 2017? Now, stats for safeties is pretty hard to judge, but those are the numbers that are given. I chose to use those, and we're going to use those as a baseline. Can he be a better player than that? I think Shawnee Yvette asked a legitimate question. Can he stay healthy? That may supersede all of these numbers. Can he stay healthy? I mean, that might be the number. Let me give you a comparison. Let me give you a comp. If you've bought a house, you know what a comp is. Let me give you a comp. Eric Weddle, when he played for the Ravens in his last year, has 6 interceptions and 8 pass defense. Do any of you guys think that Sean Davis can be a ball hawking enough of a safety to get to the point where he can get 6 picks, 5 picks, 4 picks? Can he increase that? Can he be a player that's more nosy around the football and get his hands on more footballs and make more plays and generate more turnovers? Can he be that guy to take that next step and be a player close to Eric Weddle? Be a guy that good? Because if you could imagine that Sean Davis can get his interception count up to 6, 4, 5, or 6, maybe increase it from his 2017 numbers, how much better would that defense be? You know, Andy Shoup chimes in and says Davis needs to be more like Ryan Clark. Edmonds needs to be more like Palomalu. Getting bent with Bo again. I think Edmonds can be one of the guys this season. Let me jump into another comment. Snowman said, amen, Bo. And email 04 said scheme. So maybe it's a scheme thing. Maybe the scheme will put him in position to be that guy to get more plays and to make more plays. So he's one of the young guys on defense that I've identified that has to become one of the guys. Another guy, Cam Sutton. I'm going to ask a simple question with Cam Sutton, because we don't have to go into the numbers with Cam Sutton, because Cam Sutton did not play a lot of football last year. But riddle me this. Can Cam Sutton be the 2017 Mike Hilton? Can he be that guy? A guy that got at least 2 picks, a guy that had at least 50 tackles, a guy that had at least 7 quarterback hits, a guy that had at least 10 pass defense. That's the type of jump. If he's going to be in the mix of one of these defensive backs that's going to play in dime, I think the Steelers need that type of jump out of him for the Steelers to compete for this 7th Lombardi. Darren Dalton asked a question. I have a question. When do we know when a problematic position isn't much so the player, but it might actually be the position coach or the problem? Well, the player is going to always get judged, because we're not going to have the intricacies behind the scenes as to the scheme. We just have to trust that the player or the coach is going to put the player in the right scheme to be the most productive. But at some point in time, it's going to always come back to the player. What is the player doing to make himself productive, and what is he doing when he's on the field with his opportunities? Let me jump into a question here. Shawnee Yvette said, Edmonds will be on point. We can't sleep on his brother Trey. Sutton can be great if he can control the penalties. I mean, that's one thing, because we saw in the game, and it'll be interesting to see how they play on Sunday. And we saw on the previous game that Sutton played a lot of nickel. Mike Hilton played a lot of safety over top. I thought Mike Hilton looked great. I thought Sutton looked better in coverage. But this is an example of one of the young guys that has to become one of the guys. This defense needs these 2 type of players to make that jump and to make that shift. And the last guy on the list, and a lot of you guys are chiming in and saying, pointing to him on the live chat, is Terrell Edmonds. Last year, 90 tackles, 3 picks, 7 tackles for loss, 8 pass defense. What numbers do you see him getting this year? And let's put it on interceptions and pass defense. How many interceptions do you guys see him having next year? Big up to Smack Out 9-8. Big up to you, homeboy. You know, we always got to get it done. We got to get it cracking in here. Always Steelers says, if we stay disciplined and stay with our assignments, we'll get there, or they'll be one of the top 5. So what do you guys see from Edmonds? What type of jump do you guys see from Edmonds? Because I know a lot of you guys were down on Edmonds. A lot of you were poor on Edmonds, thought it wasn't it wasn't a great pick. Vic FM said 90 tackles, good Lord. But that's a plus and a minus. 90 tackles from a safety, that means some guys were getting to the second level. Andy Shoup said Edmonds could get 3 picks. He had 3 picks last year. So we're talking about a jump and ascension. Can 3 picks become 5 picks? Can 3 picks become 6 picks? How does he make that jump? Can he cause fumbles like ML04? Maybe he can cause forced fumbles. Maybe you don't have to get interceptions. So Daniel said 4 interceptions for Edmonds. That's a jump they'll take. If you could get 8 to 10 interceptions out of your safety combination, how would that translate? Think about that. How would that translate to the guys I identified if those guys become the guys on offense? Samuels, Connor, Washington, you're getting 8 more possessions on offense. Now, it might be rosy. I like Kreese, 6 interceptions. He'll have more tackles, but I love the 6 interceptions. If he were going to get the 6 interceptions, that would be awesome. But just imagine, put it in your crystal ball, listeners. Put it in your crystal ball. Just imagine if all of the guys that I said made that type of jump, just how much better would this team be? But if you're going to play odds, the odds are all of these guys aren't going to make this jump. So let me give you the names of the guys again. So I want you to tell me, of the guys I listed on offense: James Washington, James Conner, Jalen Samuels. Of the 3 offensive guys, of those guys, which guy are you most confident is going to be a young guy that's going to become one of the guys? I think Connor, to a large part, is already there. I still think there's growth, largely around the number of games he's going to play. But I think clearly, from what we've seen in this preseason, it's James Washington. I think James Washington is going to be it. Snowman says Washington. Kevin Shin says Washington. Justin Conway says James Conner. Michael Laney says James Washington. Jar Devil says Washington. MO84 says Washington. Daniel Nahara, Washington. It seems like the overwhelming is Washington. Washington looks like a very different player. Extremely confident. Not a body catcher, snatching the ball out the air. Crisp routes. Killing second and third team dudes. Murdering these guys. So I agree with you guys in the live chat that I think Washington is going to be the guy that's going to step up. But I think if James Conner becomes the best running back in the AFC North and possibly the best running back in the AFC, I think his impact will be greater on the football team and the offense than it will be from a wide receiver. You control clock. You can beat teams up. You limit the times or opportunities for teams to hit Ben. You don't have to force stuff down the field. Ben doesn't have to put on the number 7 cape. You can really control teams with the ground game if you're pounding them in the ground game. I'm from Pittsburgh. I love the running game. I think the most impact could come from James Conner. Now, let's look at the defensive side of football. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Stay with me. Stay with me in the live chat, baby. Sean Davis, Cam Sutton, or Terrell Edmonds? Who's going to have the biggest impact? Who's going to be that guy, the young guy that's going to become the guy? Which one is it? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Sean Davis, Cam Sutton, or Terrell Edmonds? Which one is it going to be? Conway jumped in. Justin said Edmonds. Andy Shoup said Cam Sutton. Jar Devil said Edmonds. MO84 said Edmonds. Getting bent with Bo said Edmonds. Daniel Nahara said Edmonds. Creekle said Edmonds. Snowman Edmonds. You guys seem like it's unanimously Edmonds. But I'm going to disagree. I think the nickel cornerback is probably, outside of a pass rusher and an outside corner, is the most important position on the defense. Just imagine if Cam Sutton becomes a monster, how you can, in the first game, neutralize who they're going to see in the first game. I don't even want to say the guy's name. You know who they're going to see. They're going to be Julian Edelman. Edelman's going to be ripping and killing people. Can you imagine if Sutton becomes a dominant nickel corner, coupled with Barron and Bush on the inside, in between the hashes running? You put that coverage ability in between the hashes, you're not giving up cheap throws, cheap yards. that convert third downs and keep guys moving the sticks. You take that stuff away. If you can defend the interior of the football field, you put yourself in a position to win week in, week out. So I know you guys are saying, and Creed says majority rules, but I would disagree with you because this is my show. This is my show. So I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I think it's Cam Sutton. Nickel corners, if you got a dominant nickel corner, man, you got some good corners on the outside, you can really dictate games. Getting bent with Bo agrees with me. Way to go. He said absolutely agrees with me. Wayne Johnson the first says Connor and Juju already made the Pro Bowl. They should be excluded from this topic. Yeah, Juju's excluded. Although by qualification, you could include Juju, but Connor has a ways to go. And I think the big thing with Connor, because he's almost there, is durability. Can he give you the 14 to 16 games? Let me jump into some of the comments as well here. K Smooth said Devin Bush. Devin Bush is one of those guys. And let me just shift reels. I named my guys. I named Davis, Sutton, Edmonds. I named Washington, Connor. And I named Washington and Connor. Those were my guys. And Samuels. Those were my guys. Name a guy. Let me give you the qualification again. Let me give you the qualification again. A young guy is a guy on the first contract who plays 50% of the snaps on offense or defense from last year, or a guy who we anticipate to play that percentage of snaps in 2019. I gave you my 6. Let me give you my 6 again. It's Washington, Connor, and Samuels. On defense, Davis, Sutton, and Edmonds. Give me a guy that I didn't name, one guy on the offensive side of the ball and another guy on the defensive side of the ball. Getting bent with Bo again. Samuel has better hands than Connor, but I think Connor is the better runner. I would agree with you there. Kevin Shin chimed in. I feel that there might be a possibility that Barron might get shifted to safety depending on how bad our safeties are. I don't think so, Kevin. I'm going to disagree. I think he is here to be essentially to take a lot of snaps from Vince Williams. Shaney said Dangerfield is a beast, Lance. He deserves to be in the conversation. He's a special teams ace. That's why I didn't name him, but that's a good call. That's a good name for another guy not in this conversation. Daniel said Artie Burns. Artie Burns doesn't qualify. That's the caveat. I believe Artie's going into his 5th season, if I'm not mistaken. If he's going into his 4th, he qualifies. Sean Toner says Switzer and Bush. I didn't go with Bush because Bush is an obvious pick. That's low-hanging fruit. He's the first-round draft pick. K Smooth said Benny Shell. Benny Snell. Excuse me with the spelling, K Smooth. Benny has no jets. I don't expect anything from Benny Snell except tackling guys on special teams. He had a refrigerator on his back, and the refrigerator was full of groceries. He needs to drop some weight. Jay Wobble on defense. I think we said Hargrave. We disqualify Hargrave because he's already made the jump. Vic FM, big up to you. Thanks for the compliment. You should be in radio. I thought I am doing radio. This is my radio for you, Vic. I'd rather do this. Kevin Shin, Benny Snell. Okay, I get where you're going. Yes, he is a Snell. You can call him Benny Kenmore because he's got a Kenmore on his back, or maybe Benny Samsung because I got a Samsung refrigerator. Whatever. Andy Shoup says Snell like Torres. Exactly. Oh, Benny Shell like Torres. I get it. See, you were trying to be too clever. Just say he's slow. Just say he's slow. So we get it. He's slow. But before we get off the program, I want to just open it up completely to you guys. I think it's been a strong 35 minutes somewhere. We like to hit it and quit it. Been a strong show, I think, so far. Do you guys have any questions that you want to ask me going into the Tennessee game? If you guys don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude the program again. If you want to get into the super chat and have your question jump up to the top so I can make sure I hit it. Because when I'm looking at the live chat, they keep flying through, so I kind of see what's there. So if I'm saying the name of a person over and over, or don't get jealous. If you want your question answered, Give us some super chat stuff. You don't have to. It'll jump to the top. But is there anything that you guys are looking for in this final preseason game? And Jeff hates when I say this all the time. But in this final preseason game, I'm looking for no injuries. To be quite honest, I don't care if they got beat 52-0 if they come out healthy. I don't care. So let me jump into some of your questions. From Thomas White, how impressive is Mark Barron so far? It's kind of hard to say. I think he's been solid. I think what we've seen is in coverage, I think he's really good. He has the ability to really defend wheel routes. I think I saw that in week 1, him being able to run with some of the running backs from Kansas City as they try to do some wheel route concepts. So I did like that. Daniel chimed in and said Mason Rudolph has to step up too. If you need Mason Rudolph to step up, the season's over because Ben Roethlisberger is not playing. George said they play Carolina next week. Yes, they do. They play Tennessee tomorrow. Vic jumped in. I got you back with the super chat later. I don't know how to use it. I want to show support. Just hit the $. Just hit the $, Vic. Whatever you want to contribute, that's it. MO84 said, what about Jalen Samuels, tight end in college? I think Jalen Samuels is well positioned to be that backup running back. I think he looks really good this year. Quick feet, more decisive as a runner, excellent hands out of the backfield. I think if he's utilized like that team up north used to utilize Kevin Falk, I think he could be definitely deadly. Big up to cousin Dave. Thanks for the shout out. Glad you enjoyed the show. Always Steelers says she wants to see more of Dante Moncrief and Dante Johnson. Let me ask you, has Dante Spencer performed well enough for Eli Rogers to be cut? Just chew on that. Just chew on that. We have a funny guy in the chat who I won't mention. Can you guys police the chat? There's this guy that's in there that I think a lot of us won't like. I'm not going to name that guy's. I'm not going to even give him any oxygen. I gave him a little more oxygen than I should have at that. Let me see if there's more questions in here. Yeah, do something with this guy, guys. I need to designate one of you guys to be the moderator in the live chat, because again, I'm not going to speak to this guy. If you guys got any questions, any questions, because if not, I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. We're going to get out of here. Thank you for reporting him get bent with Bo, because that's unnecessary. Hopefully we can get this guy kicked out of the chat. And there's a troll, and I don't know how to block the guy either. I'm going to investigate how we can get the guy blocked. Ola did have a surgery, I believe. If I'm wrong, we'll talk about that on the standard. Is the standard. Snowman asked, will the offensive line play better instead of getting beat like a redheaded stepchild? Well, a lot of that is because Chucks Okorafor is there. So if Chucks Okorafor doesn't play, they'll be much better. So I think they'll be much better. I wouldn't worry about the offensive line. I think the offensive line is the best position group on this particular football team. Big Lazy Bear, way to yell at this guy. Steeler football only. Cree Eccles said, hopefully he did get banned. She's chiming in saying that Ola did have his surgery. And I'm assuming they'll designate Ola to come back later in the year. But with that, listeners, because it's kind of slowing up a little bit in the live chat, and plus I don't want this idiot to keep responding in the live chat, we're going to go ahead and conclude the program. Next time, if you guys see a guy like this guy in the chat, please police it. It's hard for me to do the show and police this guy. We are definitely streaming tomorrow. Vic FM and everybody out there, we are definitely going to do a post game. We're going to hit you with a standard as the standard today as well, I believe, later on today, and we are absolutely going to be doing a post game. We're going to give you tons of content. We appreciate everything that you guys have done for the show. Big up to Snowman for the contribution, but we're going to get out of here and conclude the show. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.